Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Report. My name is James Thompson. I'm an aspiring conservationist and content creator, and this is the show where we cover environmental topics, news items and articles of interest of both to you and to me in regards to our effect on the planet, what kind of big things happened to the planet lately, and these both cover both positive and negative effects on the environment, both by us or just in general. And these generally are just anything of interest or of note, both to me and to you. The Green Report is hosted on the Conservation Station YouTube channel and both in podcast formats. Well, if you're listening to this on whatever platform you are on. Now, today we have 4 news stories. There would have been 5, but I figured I would, at least for this first episode, we would keep things a little bit, just a little bit shorter. I've tried to do videos before. I'm actually coming from a previous YouTube channel that I've ran for nearly 3 years, where I've had plenty of practice, kind of like talking to the camera or just like talking to myself, basically, because that's what video making is. So for this show, I'm trying to go for kind of this is mainly designed to be a kind of a podcast or video show kind of format. Like, Sam Cedar or whoever takes your interest in regards to that kind of format. Of course, nothing of that quality because I don't have a studio. I mean, I'm literally. If you're watching in video form, I'm literally in my kitchen right now. This is literally the best place for lighting in regards to for recording. So yeah, like I don't know. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll actually get to have a big room. Maybe when I get a place of my own. I don't know. But without further ado, let's get into today's stories. We'll start off with the smallest story, and that's that'll help us ease us into what's going on. Because I don't want to just jump into a big, huge topic straight away. Like maybe let's get acclimatized, and I guess kind of get to know each other a bit more. I guess, and maybe the smaller article will help. So, depending on when you're watching this, this episode was recorded in May, so these are all May articles. So I'm assuming by the time this episode's all done and stuff, and finally out there after multiple times trying to record it, will probably be in June by the time you get to actually see it. So this article was published on Wednesday the 8th of May, and it is Britain passes 1 week without coal power for the first time since 1882. Landmark follows government pledge to phase out coal-fired electricity by 2025. So perhaps you guys have heard of the climate agreement or the Paris Agreement or whichever kind of way you want to say it. This is where a ton of nations of the world came together and basically, in Paris, because Paris is basically kind of, I think Paris just seems to be the center of the kind of climate change right now in terms of where it's all happening. Like they report to Paris, they're put into the United Nations and this kind of thing. And it's all like the big United Nations push to actually get all countries to really reduce their carbon footprint and really try to really actually try to do something to actually save the planet. As crazy as that sounds, given the state of everyone's governments, but yeah, politicians are actually trying somewhat. So some successfully, some not. But we're seeing progress, and this, especially for the UK, is a big progress. I mean, 1 week without coal power, that's astonishing, given both, America and here in the UK, especially kind of like in the 80s, our dependence on fossil fuels has just skyrocketed, especially the past 20 years, given just the rate of consumption and, obviously, population increase and so I'll just scroll through the article here, and we'll just kind of cover the stories, just kind of pull out the bits of information that we need to discuss. So the last call generator came off the system at 1:24 p.m. on the 1st of May, meaning the UK reached a week without call at 1:24 p.m. on Wednesday, according to the National Grid's system operator, which runs a network for both England, Scotland and Wales. So this is the UK, obviously excluding Ireland, because Ireland is literally an island away. Coal-fired power stations still play a major part in the UK's renewable energy system as a backup during high demand, but increasing use of renewable energy resources such as wind power means it's required less. High international coal prices have also made it's a less attractive form of energy. So what I was just saying, because generally in projections, especially 5 years ago, coal and gas were the first to go. Obviously, like things like oil will go last, at least in terms of general projections. The projections for when each exact fossil fuel goes out will just like kind of ebb and flow generally, just because when it comes to predicting, if something's not predicted forever, it's like new studies have to be made, because that's how science works. And it is good to know that we are beginning to see a change in regards to coal, at least. Like that's one progress. But yeah, the first coal-free week since 1882 was actually is a really huge milestone. The fact that it has to have happened now is really annoying, but really there hasn't been as much pressure as much as there was like kind of last year, and especially with the climate agreement. Generally, like we all knew climate change was coming, but like just there was never a sense of urgency in regards to these matters. It was all just it always felt so far away. Like even for me, a guy who kind of preaches about this stuff and cares about the past. When I learned about the whole 12-year thing, that really hit me, like emotionally. That hit me like right here in the core. Just as this idea that we have less time than we really thought, like, and but by like 2050 people are going to start dying, and it just really hit me close to home, that this idea that like we need to start doing something. We need to start pushing the governments to stop this climate breakdown, and that's why there's all these protests going on in the UK right now, especially in London a lot. Kind of the Extinction Rebellion, kind of a group, all just like well, not rioting, they're protesting, and it's all peaceful protests, but like obviously the state has started to arrest people from climate breakdown. So that's just classic government stuff right there. If you want to talk about suppression of free speech, there's your suppression of free speech, actual arresting of people trying to make the government actually care about the planet. And as ridiculous as it consistently sounds, we're literally trying to force the government to care about people dying from all kinds of climate change related things. Anyway, back to coal. Everyone's favourite subject, everyone's favourite compressed carbon. So the UK government has committed to phasing out coal-fired power by 2025. I don't think. I'm not sure. I believe 2025 is within the. No, yeah, it is within the 12-year span. Luckily, I believe generally the final tipping point would be like 2031 and that kind of thing. But yeah, this I'm not we can't really say for sure. Okay, well, what's going to happen to coal by then? Is coal going to be gone by then? Because but this is just a tiny infinitesimal bit of proof that we can do it. The UK can go forward and actually actually run on more renewable sources. And this article even says here that coal is beginning to be phased out for more renewable sources such as wind power, and that's really important. And people might say, oh well, why don't you just invest in one big form of energy? But that's not the point. The renewable energy isn't just about efficiency of power. It's about actual sustaining and consistent power that not only is endless, like wind power and hydraulic power are basically endless. It's also about not reducing our carbon footprint. Generally, that's what it's all about. It's not about it's not just about kind of efficiency and how much power we can consume, because obviously there is noise pollution from wind turbines and everything, but it's just mainly about consistency and also protecting the planet. Reduction in coal use in the UK have been responsible for halving electricity generation emissions since 2013. So this generally has started around about 2013, 2012 kind of just that kind of time frame. The Committee on Climate Change, or the CCC, whose report last week called for the UK to pursue a target of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Was it the director of National Grid ESO said he believed Britain's electricity system could be run with zero carbon as soon as 2025. Right. So you can integrate new technologies right across the system, from large-scale offshore winds to domestic-scale solar panels to increase demand-side participation, using smart systems to manage and control the system in real time. And that's great. We're already seeing how they're going to integrate, coal power into this whole new way of managing things, and that's important. As much as it is to say, oh, we should do this, we can do this, it's also important to actually say how and why we're going to do this. And unfortunately, sometimes we just can't say that, or that gets lost in translation. We talk about, oh, we're going to phase out fossil fuels. All right, what about the jobs? How are we going to do that? How are we going to balance, our need to keep the fossil fuels, but reduce our need for them, while raising up the amount of renewable sources we'll be using, while also managing, okay, well, where these workers are going to go, in the fossil fuel industry. And there are all kinds of plans to that, but generally these get lost in translation. These aren't really focused on, because the loss of jobs and the loss of business is more focused on than the actual, okay, well, what's the next step? And that's just unfortunately how the business works. Greg Clark, the business secretary, said the UK is on a path to become the first major economy to legislate for net zero emissions. The government has faced criticism. Proposals to impose higher VAT on solar panels and failure to give full backing to the offshore wind generation would make meeting a net zero emissions target more difficult. And here's always the problem. The government will never give full backing to these kinds of things, and they're always in place, tax on things. And this is not saying tax is bad, but when you're increasing taxes on things that are literally like helping reducing our footprint, or like kind of like not committing to more renewable sources than you actually should, you're creating a kind of you're not really showing that you're committed to get things done by 2025. 2025 is literally like 6 years away. Let's put that in perspective. The 12-year span is not a huge amount of time. 2030, we need to be nearly all on our way to reducing our footprint, to kind of drawing more carbon, to more tree planting, more protections, more rewilding of like kind of areas, kind of like new changes in regards to how we manage farmland, and the kind of like removing the corporatization of farmland that we're especially seeing in like America and things like that. Like that's the stuff that we need to see gone by 2031. And it's just going to take a lot of work and a lot of pushing, but it's good to see that we do have more projections as we are going forward. But obviously we aren't just talking about the UK here, because the environment affects us all, not just in the UK, but it's just everywhere. Oh, sorry, that one struggled to load, so we'll come back to it. So, the Evening Standard, this was published on Sunday the 5th of May. A 7-mile bee corridor was coming to London to boost the decline population of bees. This is a very positive story, and really kind of like brightened my day, if I'm honest. Let's see. So, a pathway for bees will be formed of 22 meadows sown through parks and green spaces in the northwest of London. You can see this is the northwest of London, and the corridor was planned to be placed in time for the summer, and that's we're literally in June now. So generally, let's say by the end of July, we will literally be in a position where we'll be encouraging a huge amount of bee population, and kind of like helping rebuild our diminishing bee population, which is, as it says here, has been declining since the 1980s, especially with the decline of wildflowers. Here you can see a little picture of the idea of this, where you see it and 7 miles long, and you can see it kind of winding through there, and you see all the wildflowers and how it's going to work. It's obviously very simplified, but just having a visual image of it, even if it's only like this kind of like small and like kind of well, it's obviously just how it's proposed to look. It's obviously going to look more real when you see actual images of it. So hopefully there's more articles on this when it actually kind of is all done, and we can kind of see it as like a success story for the environment. The flowers also benefit species such as butterflies, dragonflies, and moths. Always important. We don't just want to save one species. Like that's always the biggest problem in certain conservation projects. I remember once I was told this story where these environmental campaigners were trying to save this one species of owl that lived in this one forest, and eventually at some point when they were taking that forest down, they were trying to like kind of manage it, and they wiped out tons of other species. And it turns out they could what they try to do there in order to help promote the owl population, also kind of just basically did nothing for the owl population, and even kind of affected how the owls would survive later on anyway. So there's always this problem of where it's like, alright, you can't just do things for one species anymore. It has to be for a majority. And sometimes obviously, if you can do things for let's say butterflies or badgers or whatever. There's always times where individual things will always help the individual species, but at the end of the day, generally you want to, when you're doing these kind of these kind of proposals, these kind of or policies or whatever, generally you try and encourage as much biodiversity and as much kind of like species survival as possible. See, so from the public, Kelly Eaton from Public Realm Policy said they want to do a bit to boost biodiversity. Biodiversity, you'll probably hear a lot while you're watching both this program and the other shows we do here on the conservation station. Biodiversity is the most important thing to discuss in regards to environmentalism. Just the act of encouraging and kind of helping promote the amount of species within one particular ecosystem, and just making sure it's a wide variety as possible, but also ensuring that the actual individual species are also themselves have a good population as well. The parks team created a mix of wildflowers with bees and other insects in mind, choosing varieties that would attract these pollinators. So we're already seeing that this little corridor is already being tailor-made for bees and dragonflies and all these kinds of insects, and then that's really important and really that's really good, project planning and really good actual it's good practice basically. If you're going to want to save the bees, you have to save them the best way, and that includes actually tailoring whatever you're going to do for the actual insects themselves, not just in the sense of we'll just plant a bunch of flowers. No, like you need to ensure that you're attracting as many bees as possible, like as many species as you can, and also just as many just as many kinds of you just want as many bees as possible and as much flowers as possible for these bees. Like I know sometimes I talk and I literally can't think of what to say. I don't know. I guess I'm really bad at that. I guess, but we'll work on it. Things that affect the bees, as I said here, include insecticides called neonicotinoids. Neonicotinoids, parasites, disease, climate change, and lack of diverse food supply. And obviously, we're talking about diverse food supply there. Obviously, they're fixing that problem by having as many flowers as possible, and that's what I was trying to get to there, basically. For food making up a third of the human diet is from plants that are pollinated by insects. And obviously, I think we've all been told at this point, we kind of have a symbiotic relationship with bees. Bees help so many species survive, so many, not just animals, but plants as well. Obviously, pollination is extremely important for continuing, kind of, whether it's trees or flowers or bushes or whatever. Whatever's been pollinated is generally want as much as that, keeping going and increasing as much as possible. And obviously, if given that this is going to be in place by the end of the summer, this is just a really awesome news, and it's just really nice to have, despite all this misery, more success stories and just more positive things helping the environment. And so that's two good stories I've had so far. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty bad stuff. Right, so this was published on Wednesday, 8th of May by The Guardian again. The Guardian is probably one of the best resources if you want to keep up to date with environmental news as soon as possible. Like, they're very good at what they do. So, fresh mountain smog, 96% of national parks have hazardous air quality, and this is a study. So I thought that this was a very big kind of important thing to talk about. And air quality is a thing that's going to come up a lot because this is what we're trying to solve. Like, polluted air is literally like killing us. Like, if you live in a busy street where cars go by and you know all those fumes, you are basically like unhealthy. Like all those pollutants in your lungs and in your body. Like generally, I wouldn't say you're in danger, but you are being harmed. And this is the kind of important thing we discuss. And it's always what makes national parks so important is just this level of prioritization. These non-profit places where nature is just maintained and balanced. Unfortunately, that's not always so successful. Yellowstone was pretty bad for quite a few decades until they finally began to bring the wolves back. I believe they brought them back to Yellowstone or some other park, but I'm going to say it's Yellowstone for now. And then we'll probably talk about the things I'm not so sure on more in future videos. Like wolves will also be a very important thing we'll be discussing in the future. They play a vital role in ecosystems, and everyone likes wolves, right? Except people who shoot them, I guess. So this report finds that popular parks such as Yosemite and Joshua Tree have pollution levels that threaten visitors and wildlife. And let's put it this way: 96% of national parks have hazardous air quality. That is absolutely disgusting. The report released yesterday by the National Parks Conservation Association, or the NPCA, found that some of the most popular parks, including Kings Canyon, blah 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 blah, the Mojave National Preserve, were among the worst offenders. Last year, these parks recorded up to 2 months where ozone levels were considered dangerous, mostly in summer when visitation is at its highest. 88% of parks found that elevated levels of air pollution were a direct threat to sensitive species. Air pollution is also exacerbating climate change, adding to a mountain list of threats to national parks that includes wildlife, drought, and unnatural seasons. Obviously, because climate change affects seasons, it affects the amount of water we get, like what kind of weather you get, and it's just destroying the kind of like consistent balance that nature's always had in these kinds of national parks. And obviously, for the kind of like animals that are used and basically adapted to doing nearly the same thing basically every year. That's not good for them. That's going to muck them up a lot. It's going to affect everything from reproduction to species distribution to in some cases extinction or endangerment. And obviously, if these places are designed to give us a place to go to see all these protected plants, all these protected animals, if these places are doing so bad and literally harming everyone and everything in them, what's that got to say about us? Like all these places we created for some betterment, they basically we're killing them too. Air quality can cause lung damage, of course. Like we've discussed that, how it affects your lungs. And this will impact both rangers, visitors, and animals. Obviously, as it says here, ozone has ability to affect soil, burn plants, and harm habitats. Last year, another study said that over the last 2 decades, air pollution in parks has rivaled that of the 20 largest major metropolitan cities, including Los Angeles and Houston. Now that is really scary. If air pollution in like kind of like, let's say, Yosemite or anywhere like that, if their air pollution is at that level, if their ozone levels are basically damaging the park that much, and it's not even in a city, like if you're literally more unhealthy in a natural environment than you are in a city, that's a really bad really bad thing to do, a really bad situation to be in. Like, I try to go to these places when I can. I don't want to go there to get my lungs lacerated by horrific fumes. That's not really how I want to spend my time. And obviously there are hundreds of millions of visitors to these parks, and that's only adding to the amount of kind of the pollution that's happening in these parks. Now we get into the Trump stuff. I suppose it's about this is either the end or the beginning of my channel. But obviously these are facts. These are blatant facts. It's not like I'm saying anything against I guess the Trump administration. I'm just reading what the Trump administration are doing. So just putting that out there. I'm not trying do whatever it is you think I am trying to do. I'm just reporting on well, I guess the news, I guess. So the Trump administration continues to repel regulations and push for more drilling in public lands. The Environmental Protection Agency's pollution enforcement has just dropped 85%. That is absolutely mind-boggling. Like, what are you actually doing, America? This is actually insane. I mean, of course, you pulled out the climate agreement, so that's you're all idiots, right? Like look at China. China's making this huge, like, basically ocean of solar panels that try and power their country. They're going to try to go like basically all the solar. Or look at Amsterdam, where they're actually going to get rid of all fossil fuel cars and transport by 2030. Like, put it this way. If we're going to not be using coal by 2025, and that's the projection that we have to force ourselves to be in, they're estimating in 10 years that they will have no fossil fuel guzzling cars on the streets. That is actually astonishing. That is amazing. That is like unbelievable. Like I'm sure when everyone said, "Oh, we all need electric cars," they all pictured like 2060 or something when that would happen. But no, like, you can literally, if you really try, you can actually get this done within like 10 to 20 years. That is just like an amazing feat there. The Clean Air Act, that must be some American, obviously policy regarding pollution. It requires states to protect national parks, and new rules could help curb air contamination in coming years. Under the regional haze rules, states will have to submit updated plans for how they address the pollution affecting the parks by 2021. So in 2 years, states will have to submit their plans for solving pollution in the national parks that obviously are in their state, and clean up the act by 2028. So 2028, that's 2 years before obviously that Amsterdam thing that we discussed. So, but the thing is that this rule was implemented in 1999. This should have obviously this should have been done ages ago, but obviously under the current administration, America is not doing that right now. And the regional haze rule apparently says that the air quality in parks has to be returned to pre-pollution levels by 2064. So obviously there's going to be some overlap. It's not going to be a complete patch job, but hopefully America comes around and finally just manages to just do their part to just reduce these carbon emissions, just make the air breathable and livable. Like that's all we need. Like it doesn't matter, if it's like if it's not 100% done. Like obviously, I don't think we can't at this point. But all we can do is just reduce our impact, and that's what it's all about. It's all about just reducing impact and then just doing what we can with the time we have, just to limit the effects and everything that's going on. And that's basically the end. So here we've learned a lot of things about how the Americans are both, well, the parks are both being destroyed, but they're also how there are plans put in place since 1999 to help fix this problem. But obviously at this point, it's going to be a very close call in regards to is this problem going to be fixed in time. And 2021, to have the proposals ready on how they're going to solve this crisis. I mean, that's kind of good news. 2 years, that's a pretty short kind of amount of time. But whether or not, however much all these individual states actually kind of commit to that is, well, that's a story for another day. And our final story tonight on the Green Report is a following by National Geographic. This is a cover of the United Nations report on biodiversity. Now I have read another article on the story, but it was very kind of I guess short. It didn't really have the kind of information I liked, but it did basically tell us that this is a big United Nations report on biodiversity and human effect on all these ecosystems, and kind of giving us projections on what will happen in the future. And apparently this hasn't been done before, at least not at this scale. Obviously we have scientists in general, climate scientists and everything, giving us these predictions. This is the official United Nations report, obviously in regards to all the Paris stuff. So some of this is quite scary. I mean, first of all, let's look at the title: 1 million species at risk of extinction. That is absurd. We are currently in the 6th mass extinction. I believe it's the 6th, and this is basically pretty much entirely man-made. It's an entirely man-made extinction, if you can believe that's an actual term. Obviously things happen, animals go extinct, these things happen, but not at this scale. This is a mass extinction, not by a meteor, not by volcanoes or a big plague. Just mass extinction via climate destruction, and it isn't entirely on us. All these animals' deaths are on us, and I was just thinking, oh, you shouldn't feel guilty about it. Yeah, we should. We let this happen, and in 12 years, we will be too late to stop both this and to save ourselves if we don't start making big preparations. So I think I will feel a bit guilty if future generations are going to die of both species of plants and animals, and obviously humans. I think I'll feel just a little bit of guilt about what humanity's done, just a little bit. But don't want to get too heated there. So nation's in trouble, therefore we're in trouble. Sarah Diaz, one of the co-chairs of the Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. On May 6th, a 40-page summary for policymakers of the forthcoming full report. I don't know, just words. So let's get into the actual what the report actually did. So a review of about 15,000 scientific and government sources compiled by 145 authors from 50 countries. The global report is the first comprehensive look in 15 years. That's 15 years. So that's early 2000 was the last time this was done. At the state of the planet's biodiversity. It includes indigenous and local knowledge as well as scientific studies. So obviously we can get the kind of like more local kind of knowledge as well as just kind of the big stuff as well. So this is like probably the most extensive kind of report on biodiversity ever, generally. They found overwhelming evidence that human activities are behind nature's decline. They ranked the major drivers of species decline as land conversion, including deforestation, overfishing, bushmeat hunting, poaching, climate change, pollution, and invasive alien species. These are all things that I think some of us know about, and generally that have all come up in my time. I should say that I studied conservation for 2 years in college, and I've done this in my own time as voluntary work with kind of like non-profit organisations such as a National Trust and this kind of thing. So all of this is nothing new to me. Like deforestation, obviously, that just destroys tons of ecosystems, endangers millions of animals, and reduces the amount of carbon that's been taken out of the atmosphere. And obviously that's one of the many factors which is killing us via air pollution. Overfishing, that's destroying entire sea ecosystems. Our obsession with the amount of fish we get, the demand is higher than the actual needs. I don't know where the demand for overfishing comes from, because it just seems like they're servicing no one really. Like people like fish, I like fish. It depends on the day, I guess. But I'm not asking for this consistency. I'm not asking for entire coral reefs to be destroyed just so I can have a cod in my plate. Poaching that has been a serious thing for decades, like actual decades. Especially in regards to the kind of what's been going on in China, and the Chinese bone trade and things like that. I don't know how anyone's going to stop that. Really, you can only stop the poaching of stuff. You can't stop the actual trade of it. You can't just go into China and say stop sniffing tiger bones and powdering them up and just snorting like a line of crack. Just stop doing that. You can't really tell them that. So, and obviously climate change, pollution, and invasive alien species. I want to talk about alien species for a second. Now, it sounds really weird. It sounds like environmental racism, but the thing is, invasive species are really bad. They are really bad for the environment, especially local ecosystems. I've dealt with some of in my time. There's a species of tree that was brought here. I forget many years ago now. I want to say like 50 years ago, but it could be more than that. But it's called rhododendron, and this tree was very successful here in the UK. And by successful, that means way too successful for our own good. I think it was just brought here because, like many things, they're brought here because they look nice or brought here by accident. But rhododendron is when plants like that are outside of their own native habitat, they generally prove more successful here in this kind of different climate. And so rhododendron was so successful that it can essentially wipe out entire sections of forest and just kill hundreds of trees just nationwide. It releases toxins into the soil, which kill any saplings, any grass, any shrubs, just anything around us, anything around this little kind of death radius. And the way rhododendron grows out, it just covers the forest floor, and just prevents any light from getting to all these younger plants. Like, these things have to be quote unquote culled. I don't know what the best term for tree culling is, but it's one of the cases where I will justify, the kind of destruction of certain plants, because these have to be put in check. Otherwise, this monster that we've kind of brought into our midst will actually wipe out entire sections of forest. Yeah, and these things are dangerous. So that's the importance of invasive species. That's why they're a big deal to kind of basically everyone. It's not because they're different or something that we don't like, we like only native trees here, please. None of those French trees or French animals or whatever. It's because of the fact that these species are too successful, and they're literally destroying entire habitats, and so we have to deal with that. So anyway, back to the report. 8.7 million species make up our life support and safety net. They provide us with clean water, air, energy, and more. And that energy net is shrinking. Okay, and now we're getting to our effects on the ocean. Now, the ocean's very important. Some remote tropical forests insects have vanished. Grasslands are starting to become deserts. 75% of the Earth's land areas have been altered by human impact. And that doesn't even have to be by direct physical action. That can literally just be because we've impacted 75% of the planet via our own existence, like our own pollution, our own footprint. It just affects the entire world generally. 400 dead zones have been created where life can't survive. That would effectively cover the state of Oregon or Wyoming. Now, 400, that's a big number. I can say, like, as we go through these reports and everything that's going on, like, the next 12 years, they're going to be really bad, and it's really scary. And people have said, "Oh, like, you're just panicking. It's just like Al Gore." And well, no, you see, people knew climate change was happening for 20 years before Al Gore did the whole push for that kind of thing. And these were the big corporations, the big oil companies that were doing it. These were the people, they knew what was going to happen, and yet they did nothing. Exxon Oil, especially, they had all these studies like ready, knowing what was going to happen, and they just decided to pursue their own interests, their own monetary interests, especially under the Reagan administration. Big oil was getting a good old hand job to keep doing what it was doing. Right, okay, we can start here. So, as the guys from who worked on this report basically are saying, like, protecting half the planet by 2050 with an interim target of 30% by 2030. So basically securing 30% of plants and animals, and both on land and sea, is the only way to meet the Paris climate targets or achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals for the world. Forest, oceans, and other parts of nature suck 6% of global fossil fuel emissions every year. We need to secure the biosphere to protect the climate and help buffer us from extreme weather events. coral reefs and mangroves protect coastal areas from storms such as hurricanes, and obviously due to overfishing and climate change, coral reefs and that kind of thing are being destroyed or changed. Wetlands absorb rainfall, but obviously they've declined dramatically. Wetlands are down to 15% of what they were 300 years ago, and coral reefs are facing a global bleaching crisis. So, all just horrible stuff. Nearly 100 groups around the world, including National Geographic Society, have endorsed the goal of protecting half the planet by 2050. And 2050 is the big number. That's the big goal. Everything has to be done by 2050 or 2030, or that's generally the big. Those are the big number target dates. So, Germany, as it says, there's a big push to create more protected areas to ensure 30% of the planet keeps on going, but for 2030. New kinds of protections, new laws, and this kind of thing. So that's a pretty good goal there, like a pretty good idea of what we need to do. So obviously, as people say, there are plans, there are ways of doing these things. They just need to happen, and we need to stop whatever is kind of getting in the way of that from doing whatever it's doing. The full global assessment report will be published later this year, so hopefully we'll get our hands on the report and we can actually read through it, and maybe we'll make that maybe we'll do it on some live streams and things. That'll be a lot of fun, or we'll do it on special episodes of the Green Report itself. But getting our hands on that report, I'd love to see that report. I mean, as much as horrible it would be to see how horrible impact we've had on the environment, it will also be good to see, just how much damage we really are having, and also seeing some of the proposals for how to fix it. And that's the thing. That's the whole thing that we've been talking about here. Is we have all these ideas in mind, we have all these protections in mind, and ways of doing it, and ways of transitioning out of fossil fuel based society. But these just aren't being communicated. As I say, people are like, oh well, you say all these things, but what are you doing about it? And there are things that are being done about it, but they're being blocked by administration, and we need to push back against that. Marine biologist in the Coastal Oceans Research and Development, Indian Ocean, Mombasa, said there's so little time left to save corals. If we can save corals, we could save everything. And that's a big message there. Like, not only tells us how little time you have to save coral reefs, but also the vital role coral reefs play in the global ecosystem and the global economy. So just keep in mind, all these reports are real. It's not like this is all fake facts or something. This is all tangible, kind of knowable stuff that it will be happening in the near future, and real stuff that affects us. But we also have real plans and ways of dealing with these problems. So just reminded that there is hope, but you just have to keep yourself educated and push for whatever you can to make sure our continued survival and kind of nature's survival are both intact and both continued for the rest of our lives. So the report says countries need to reform hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies and incentives currently given to the energy, fishing, agriculture, and forestry sectors. Instead of driving exploitation, they should be used to incentivize restoration. So create change and invest in new jobs, new roles, and whatever you can to actually undo the damage we've done. So instead of just destroying jobs as people think we will be doing, we will actually be creating way more, and these will be way more accessible than the previous fossil fuel based jobs. And that would be good for me, because getting a job in conservation is really, really hard, unspeakably hard. I'm sure maybe I'll talk about that someday, but for now, all I'll say is that there's a reason I'm doing it on this channel. I'm not actually quote unquote practicing what I preach, and that's because there's a lot of roadblocks in the way of really getting into a career in conservation. It's a lot of it's non-profit based, a lot of it's voluntary based. So you really have to get the right amount of education and the right amount of experience to get into this kind of line of work. But hopefully under new administration and new kind of deals and new legislation, we'll finally be able to get more people into this field. Okay, we need to change what we value: nature, ecosystem, and social equity, not growing the GDP. We also nature managed by indigenous peoples and local communities is generally better health than nature managed by corporate institutions. So that basically tells us that big old non-profit organizations, that the really big corporate ones, basically, those are less well managed than actual more low scale kind of organizations and low scale charities. And that's one of the prices you pay. You have to get into these big places like the National Trust or the Durham Wildlife Trust, all these kind of places to actually work in conservation, but they're not the 100% effective method, and a lot of their policies and a lot of the things they do, they are damaging. I should definitely know, I've definitely taken part in some of these damaging kind of things that were done to quote unquote help the environment, but really they only helped kind of themselves. And maybe I'll talk about a few of them someday. So, the kind of ways conservation goes horribly wrong, and how a corporate interest and kind of gets in the way of actually doing a job and doing the kind of ethical or more sustainable thing for the environment. Even the supposed good people have their downsides. Countries are still slow to recognise this. 4 years ago, indigenous people stopped construction of dams in the Chica River. Alright, so basically that instead of having more local dams built, it's now built by big corporations now, and it's these corporations don't have the interest in heart. Dams are also pretty good environments in terms of the land they own and create. They can be pretty helpful for kind of local species. Even if a lot of them, especially more reservoirs here, they're more built for fish farming, but generally what dams can do, other than prevent water from going downstream, they do prevent things like surface runoff and all these kinds of things. So generally dams are pretty helpful, despite some of the negative impacts they have. But obviously it's about how you manage the actual environment around it as well. And it seems, as this report says, that having more local government based ones instead of big corporate based dams seems to have a positive effect. And I think that's basically what it's teaching us, that don't put your conservation in the hands of the big man. Put them in your hands. But obviously that takes time, and we need the government to actually work on that and make the conservation field more accessible for everyone. China's important role to play in the discussion around biodiversity because the country will host a major United Nations conference called the UN Convention on Biological Diversity in late 2020. So next year, there's going to be a big conference in China, and I hope a big international agreement to protect the planet could happen there, akin to the Paris Agreement around climate. And that's the end of our stories today, folks. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Report. It's a bit mumbly, I'll admit. Like these are all done live, so it's not like it's scripted or anything. It's supposed to be kind of like a live kind of report kind of show. But I hope you enjoyed somewhat I talked about here. I talked about obviously the information in those articles, but I also talked about some of my own personal history and try to make the kind of these as accessible as possible for you guys as well. Because obviously I can't really speak in the technical terms because I'm not exactly in the field just yet. So I'm really hoping to do that within hopefully the next 10 years. That'll be really nice. But let's just speak to each other on a personal level because that's what this program is about. And that's what this channel is about. It's about making conservation and climate change and all these topics more accessible for everyone, so then we can all have a discussion together. Because there's a lot of kind of like, I guess, roadblocks in place for people on what's happening in regards to these things, and I hope to just destroy those roadblocks and push them down. I'm hoping to get the Green Report done monthly, but only time will tell. So I guess I'll keep you guys updated on that. But in the meantime, you'll also be getting other videos on the side, because this is, as much as this is the main show, but the main show doesn't go on every week. It takes time. It takes time to make sure everything's quiet and well lit. Like it's a nice sunny day, so luckily you guys can actually see me instead of where yesterday where you couldn't see me at all. And I hope you enjoyed the discussions we had today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments or via email. You can find me at conservationstationcontact@gmail.com, where you can send me an email there. That'll perhaps be covered on perhaps a video or a live stream where I'll respond to your questions if you prefer that. So let me know in the email itself if you don't want to be in a video and just want me to kind of, I guess, respond to you or whatever. You can follow me on Twitter on Twitter at TCS Green Report. That'll be in the description as well. You can also support the Green Report and all the other shows here in the Conservation Station on Patreon. I'm working on that. That should be ready by the time this episode goes up. And you guys can help support me there, support the shows, and take part in your own and little benefits there. Make sure you check that out. That'll be in the description and all the cards too. And for all your listeners, audio versions will come out later than the actual video versions, because these take time after work out the whole podcast thing and get the whole podcast hosting thing. So you guys, when you're listening to this, you'll just be hearing these kinds of things later. So I guess they'll kind of be old news. So make sure you're following the YouTube channel as well, and these audio versions will probably just be things for like when you're on the go or whatever. But yeah, thank you for joining me on this first episode of the Green Report. I'm very excited about what happened here. It wasn't completely perfect, but I'm I'm very more confident now than I was before, and I'm excited to continue this little passion project of mine, and continue it more, like refine it more, and make it less kind of jumpy and edited, and more real, free form, and hopefully with less interruption. So thank you for joining me on this episode. I will see you all next time, and well, go out and save the world if you can.